Hi, this is Rex once again. Welcome you to episode 24 of the Tonk Points podcast. This week we have a few news items from the PFA, some practical playing tips, a ruling or two, some scary news on barbecues, and I'm introducing a new segment on champagne. So stay tuned, here we come. I thought we'd never get here. Let's get straight into some news from PFA. Interstate Challenge 2024. After an expression of interest process, the successful bidder for hosting this year's ISC is Brisbane Petanque Club. The ISC will be held on the weekend of 24-25 of August. Congratulations to Brisbane Petanque Club, and thank you to the other clubs that nominated, all of which we are confident would have hosted a stellar tournament. Tax deductions. The PFA has an agreement with the Australian Sports Foundation that allows individuals to make donations that will assist with the offsetting of costs of players attending major international tournaments. Any donations are tax deductible. Trans-Tasman will be on March 15th and 17th, which is not far away. This is an annual competition between Australia and New Zealand. Teams of 12 play each other in two divisions. Scores will be available on the PFA Facebook page during the weekend. Australia won both divisions in 2019, held at Newcastle. The New Zealanders turned the tables last year in Auckland. Let's wish our teams all the best in returning the Challenge Cups to Australia this year. National Championships registrations are now open on the My Petanque website. There are differences in conditions of play from last year, so make sure you read the conditions. If you have registered, you need to pay to secure your spot. Please pay by whole team where possible. If your partner is TBA, to be advised, you need to update that too. National rankings. Most state leagues have some kind of player ranking system, taking into account state championships and other significant competitions in their state. PFA has been working on a national ranking system that will rank players using the results from major national and state championships. The PFA will publish the new ranking system soon. The proposed system will be used as one of the key tools in assisting with the fair and transparent selection of future PFA international representative teams. This happened in 2020. There are lessons to be learned from this harrowing piece, although from another genre of bull game, this could be very, very close to home. Craig Anthony Dan was working as a volunteer on a barefoot bowlers' night at the Port Sorell Bowls Club in Tasmania's northwest 5 years ago, when he was asked to cook a large quantity of sausages. The club's gas barbecue was described in court documents as an unsophisticated four-burner barbecue, with the club using a makeshift method to collect fat. That has a familiar ring to it. This method involved hiding a ceramic mug out of sight underneath the barbecue plate. When Mr. Dan began cooking the sausages, the mug overflowed and caught on fire. He turned off the gas, but the mug remained alight. When Mr. Dan then attempted to remove the mug, he got caught on the upturned sides of the tray and, as he started to wiggle it out, it fell over, spilling hot fat across his right hand, severely burning it. In the Supreme Court in Hobart, Justice Helen Wood found in favour of Mr. Dan, ruling the club had breached its duty. The club breached its duty by failing to ensure that a suitable container placed in a safe position was used and that the receptacle, the mug, was empty before it was used, she wrote. It failed to provide adequate instructions in this regard to the volunteers working on the barbecue and the people responsible for setting it up. The club ought to have made provision for a fat fire by providing an oven mitt or heat-proof gloves as part of cooking equipment. She further wrote that the club failed to provide adequate instructions in the case of a fat fire. If he had been instructed not to remove the mug or fat container, I am satisfied he would have followed that instruction, she wrote. If instructed that, in the event of a fire, he was to evacuate the area, then I'm satisfied on the balance of probabilities that he would have followed that instruction too. She did, however, find that Mr. Dan had misjudged the situation in failing to notice the turned-up corners of the tray that the mug got caught on. The plaintiff was in an unexpected situation of danger, and he took the path of the lesser of two evils, she wrote. His haste in seeking to resolve the situation of danger and protect others was understandable given the exigencies of the situation, but there was a failure to pause and make observation in his attempt to remove the mug, and it was that failure that amounts to negligence. Justice Wood noted that Mr. Dan has been wholly incapacitated for work since his injury, and she expected that would be the case for the next 2 years. She awarded him $1,074,888 in damages. Taking into account past and future losses of earnings, medical and pharmaceutical expenses and general damages. Another $15,346 was awarded in interest. So take care out there. The club with which I am a member has quite a few new players. We do have over 130 members now, so I thought it timely to do a few back to basics. More experienced players may like to consider some of this as well. And I thank Ray Ager from the Brighton and Hove Baton Club for the following. Get a grip. If you learn to play golf or tennis, one of the most important things you will learn is the correct grip. But how many baton players simply pick up a set of boules and pick it up as they go along? The result can so easily be bad habits that become ingrained and are hard to overcome. Tell me about it. The most common fault is the claw grip, where the fingers and the thumb grip the boule. The correct way to hold the boule is to start with the fingers together, very slightly curled and the boule resting in the dip. Now curl the boule into the palm of your hand, keeping your fingers together. Note, the thumb is not used to grip the boule. It should be either kept away from the boule or just resting on it, but without gripping it. Why? You need to ensure that the thumb does not deflect the boule as you throw it. Turn your hand over. The boule should feel comfortable in your hand. You should be holding approximately half the boule. This assumes you have the correct size boule in your hand. Too small and it may be harder to grip correctly and control. Too big and you may have to grip it too tightly or the boule may slip out of your hand. Basically, the boule is just resting in your hand rather than being held in a grip with the fingers and thumb. When you throw the boule, the wrist is bent. As you release the boule, the wrist straightens and the boule rolls out from the fingers. You should follow through with the fingers straight and kept together. This action automatically puts backspin on the boule, which helps you to better control the shots. By keeping the fingers together and straight throughout the throwing action, including the follow-through, you should ensure that the boule is spinning straight, which will give you a much better chance of the boule going in a straight line when it hits the terrain. A common fault is to turn your hand as you play, releasing the boule from the side of the hand rather than in a straight line. This will spin the boule and make it turn to the left when it hits the terrain, rather than go in a straight line. Note, this is the case for right-handed players. The opposite will be true for left-handed players, and don't I know that? Sometimes you may want to spin the boule, either to the right or the left. Most of the time you'll want to play at a natural, straight shot, without side spin. When you throw the boule, watch how it spins. If thrown correctly, it will be spinning straight. It's easy to see how the boule spins if it has stripes. My boule has directional arrows on it to tell me which way to throw it. It's also much easier to work with a partner who can check how you are holding and releasing the boule. Also watch how your boule bounces when it lands on the terrain. If it goes sideways when you want it to go straight, check the spin on the boule, especially if you find that every shot goes sideways. Of course, the slope on the terrain or stones can also affect the bounce. There are other factors that need to be kept in mind. Does it really matter how you hold the boule? We probably all know players who play with a claw grip, but nevertheless manage to point quite well, thank you. There's nothing in the rules to say how you should hold a boule. If you wish, you're free to roll it palm up, as in lawn bowls. But if you watch the top players, the French and the world champions, often the same players, nobody plays like this. There must be a reason. If you do play palm up or grip the boule with your fingers and thumbs, you can't really put any backspin on the boule. This may not matter much on a smoother, harder terrain where you play a rolling shot, but if you play on a more stony terrain, or there are blocking boules, it may be better to play a higher lob and minimise the distance that the boule rolls. Here, you really need backspin to give more control. The same applies when shooting. If you watch all the top players, they all put backspin on the boule, which basically increases the chance of getting a carreau when you hit the target boule. And now, the landing spot, or la donne. Selecting la donne is the key to successful pointing. Reading the terrain and choosing the correct landing spot is a key skill required for accurate pointing. The landing spot should be flat and free from stones that will deflect the boule. Remember, the rules allow the team about to play to fill any one hole. This can help prepare the landing spot. Although many players do it, especially in informal friendly games, you are not allowed to smooth over the terrain or prepare the landing spot during a game. Practice the different shots at different distances, mark different landing spots and practice throwing the boule to land on them. Shooting. The classic shot is a direct boule-to-boule hit, au fer. Although more difficult, the main advantage is that the shot isn't affected by the terrain. The alternative is a rolling shot where the boule rolls along the round before hitting the target boule. This is very much frowned upon by pétanque purists. Its main disadvantage is that you can only do this on a smooth terrain and where there are no blocking boules. If you can, practice shooting into a tire, which teaches you the correct arc for shooting, and practice shooting the middle of 3 boules, again forcing you to use the correct arc. Make sure you practice at all distances. If you can only shoot at short distances, your opponents will simply play a long jack. Although some shooters do throw the boule quite hard, that isn't necessary. Many shooters use a much gentler lob, about head height, to land onto the target boule. Shooting doesn't require much more strength than pointing. If you can point, you can shoot. Simply, the target is different. For pointing, it's the landing spot. For shooting, it's the target boule. Simples. Many say that shooting is easier than pointing, where you have to take into account the type of irregularities of the terrain and be able to play a range of different shots. The main thing to remember when shooting is that the body stays still and only the arms swing backwards and forwards, like a pendulum. You must aim straight to hit the boule. Now, what about tactics? Pétanque is a highly tactical game. Chess on gravel is one description. Where to place the jack is the first consideration. Long or short, on smooth or rough ground. You want to best advantage your own team whilst disadvantaging the opponents. Of course, you need to be able to accurately throw the jack where you want it. Although sometimes neglected, throwing the jack is an important part of the game that needs to be practiced. Placing the first boule is the next consideration. Boule devant or boule legend, meaning a boule in front of the jack, is better than one behind or to the side. If a boule is too close to the jack, a competent team will simply shoot it out, giving them the advantage, especially if they do a carreau. About 30 to 40 centimetres in front is usually considered best, as this represents more of a dilemma for the opponents, whether to point or shoot. Whether to point or shoot, the next boule to be played, is the main tactical consideration in games. As a rough rule of thumb, point if you think you can beat the opponent's boule. Otherwise, shoot. However, many factors need to be taken into account. The score and how many points you need, The ability of the players? The risk of a shot going wrong, either pointing or shooting? Why shoot? The most common reason is to remove an opponent's boule that's difficult to beat. Other reasons include to gain extra points. You have 4 boules at the head, but the opponents are holding the second nearest boule to the jack. If you shoot it, you will win 4 or 5 points. If you point, you can only win 1 or 2. To remove a blocking boule, which risks being knocked onto the score if you point. Shooting the jack, either to win extra points or to save a hopeless end. Shoot first or point one then shoot. The opponents have played a good first boule. Do you shoot it straight away or point, then shoot? Like everything in petanque, it depends. You need to evaluate various factors. If you carreau, all well and good, but if you remove the boule but don't carreau, will you have the advantage? Perhaps you need to point one then shoot. What's the risk of the jack moving? If the boule is on or close to the jack, the risk is higher and you should probably shoot first. If you point first, then shoot and the jack moves, your pointed boule may well be wasted. If you point and your boule is close to the target boule, you've made the shooter's job more difficult. Don't blame them if they hit the wrong boule. The pointing and shooting abilities of both teams. Play as a team, agree the jack, evaluate the head and agree what shot to play. Blocking boule. Don't aim straight at the jack, play to the side. Don't play 2 shots, pointing or shooting, consecutively without stepping outside the circle, either for the team to reevaluate or check what the team should do next or to gather yourself together. Playing with and against different players on different terrains will improve your game much more than always playing with the same player on the same terrain. We haven't had an umpire ruling on any issues in the last few podcasts. So here's one that might quell a few on-the-piece discussions. A boule played out of turn is a boule that was played when a team mistakenly believed they did not have the point and that it was their turn to play. For a long time there's been serious debate about what should be done when this happens. Some have argued that a boule played out of turn was played contrary to the rules, and that Article 24 therefore gives the opposing team the option to declare it to be dead. Others have argued that the boule played out of turn was not an infringement of the rules, but simply a mistake. The boule or boules should be left where they are and play should continue. Well, as of March the 6th, 2023, this debate has been settled by a ruling by the FIPJP. It is now official. A boule played out of turn is simply a mistake. It should be left in place and play should continue. I checked with our top umpires here in Oz, and that is confirmed. They do say that petanque is the only ball game that can be played with a glass of wine held in one hand and not spilt. For those that don't know, champagne is my favourite tipple. The podcast logo is a bit of a giveaway. From now on, I'll be presenting you with a fact or two on this wine of the gods, and today's little goodie is, in each bottle of champagne, there are about 45 to 50 million beautiful bubbles. So if you share the bottle with 5 others, they'll get to enjoy approximately 10 million bubbles each. Now, isn't that nice to know? And yes, I did count them. What a nice way to end the show. So don't forget to register for the Nationals. Look out for the national ranking system. Be careful when cooking your bangers. And determine to where to put your boule. And try not to play out of turn. I'm off to pop a cork. No, I'm not. I'm off to pop a cork. Rex out.
You're a good man, Rex. Sick of Rex. Sick of Rex. You're a good man, Rex.